Hi, in this video I'm going to look at another good surprise sort of weapon. And this one's a bit more commonly known. It's the Shirov Gambit against the Clarke or philador sort of setups. So it's e4, d6, d4, knight f6, knight c3, e5, knight f3, knight bd7, and now g4. So this move is known as the Shirov Gambit, and if white takes it, if black takes it, then white gets a very good position. So as I'll show you now, so if knight takes g4, we just play rook g1, so attacking the knight, and after the knight back to f6. With any h5 move trying to defend the knight, we're going to simply just play h3, and now knight's going to have to go back to f6 anyway, except this pawn on h4 is bad, because white wants to play his knight to g5 after bishop c4, and so h6 is normally the move you want to play here. And to stop knight coming to g5 and say after c6, then we can just take on e5, d takes, and knight g5, and black's in big trouble. So that's why it's just best to retreat with knight to f6, and now play bishop to c4. So the idea is we want to play knight to g5. So say it's c6, and again we have the continuation takes, knight to g5. So this is no good. Also, if he takes with his knight, then we can just take on e5, and after d takes e5, there's a bishop check on f7, which just wins a pawn, wins the pawn back, and gets a good position for white. Because obviously king can't take on f7, because black loses his queen, and there's no bishop b4 check to win the queen back. So king has to come to e7, and then we're just going to take queen, and after king takes, bishop to g5, and we have a lot of pressure here. Both our bishops are on good squares. Our rook's got a lot of pressure against the g7 pawn. And so say bishop b7, then we just castle check. And yeah, black's got quite a lot of problems. I'd play f4 straight away here, even though it might leave an isolated pawn. It attacks black's king early while he's not prepared. For example, black can't defend this pawn by moving his knight, because we can just take on e7, take a bishop on e7, and then after like bishop to d6. This also looks very bad for black. I was thinking maybe we can just drop the bishop back on h4, the idea of playing rook takes g7, or we might just be able to play bishop takes f6, and after g takes f6, put our rook on g7. I'll probably play bishop back to h4, because it keeps the pressure on the knight, so it stops g6, and so now we're threatening rook takes g7. Okay, so now if he takes his pawn, then we can play bishop takes f4 check. Now you see the power of all our pieces. The rook stops the king coming anywhere along the d file, so the king has to come out to b6. And well, if white doesn't have anything with any checks, which I'm sure he must have something, then well, he just has rook takes g7, which is simple enough. This just makes white's now just a pawn up. Very good position. Black's king's very weak, and all white's pieces are in the game, whereas the bishops hasn't developed, and neither the rooks are doing anything. And white's also threatening discovered attacks against this bishop. So say off maybe knight check, and then if a king move and bishop check, and winning the rook, possibly. So yeah, this is very good for white. So we go back. That's why knight takes e5 here. It's not recommended. Okay, so the best move for black to play this is h6. So cuts out any knight g5 ideas. But then the problem with h6 is in the future white will try to play knight h4 and maybe into g6 after sacking his bishop on f7. So white normally continues with bishop e3, c6, d takes e5, d takes e5, now queen d3. Okay, b5. I think it's probably the best move because it takes away the c4 square for the queen later on. As you'll see, if queen c7, for example, then bishop takes f7 check. Could certainly be considered because after king takes and queen c4 check. Okay, so the king has two squares here: king e7 or king e8. If king e7, knight to h4. The idea of I've come to knight f5 check or knight to g6. We probably want to play knight to g6 as we win the rook. And if king back to e8, queen e6 check, bishop e7, and rook takes g7. And if king to d8, then probably just castle here. This pins the knight, so it stops the bishop being able to attack the queen. We're threatening to play knight takes e5. So black is pretty much losing here. The bishop can't defend either. Bishop can't move because the rook takes g7. So yeah, black is pretty much busted in his position. All his pieces are completely tied down. His only hope is trying to make room for the king, so he has to play queen a5 or something to try to play king to c7 and remove the pin. But now we can play knight takes e5, and obviously queen takes e5 is no good because we play queen takes e5 and knight is pinned against the king, so you can't recapture. And if king c7 here, then was Number. There's a load of possibilities here for white. You can either play knight c4. Probably looks like the best idea. Try to keep pieces on. Or you could try bishop to f4 here straight away. Which looks. How quickly? Lionel's trying to analyse this one after takes king b6. Can black try escape because our queen's now won there. It's not being attacked. So after queen check. But I thought bishop, probably not bishops, but like queen to b4 might just be holding for black. So instead play knight to c4, leaving the pieces on, attacking the queen. So now say queen b4, now you can play bishop check. That knight stops the king escaping. And obviously this position is pretty hopeless for black. He's going to get king back to d8. And probably put our knight back on e5, threatening mate on f7. And if he gets king back, then obviously that's going to be bad because put our knight back on knight takes c6, just wins the pawn as well and wins the queen. So we have check. So it's no good. So yeah, black's getting completely destroyed in these lines. So yeah, black has to be very careful. This is the wrong. Yeah, black has to be very careful when these sort of lines because of this. So like if you play queen c7, then this bishop takes f7 check just looks to be winning straight away. So that's why b5 is good move, and then after bishop b3. b5 is probably quite hard to see because you think in this position, okay, you're not going to castle king's side because there's a rook already attacking my g pawn, and as soon as my bishop moves, the rook's going to take on g7. So that's not an option. And so black's probably thinking to himself, okay, queen c7 is a good move. This is a normal idea in the philador, and then I'm just going to put my knight somewhere, move my bishop, and be able to castle queen side hopefully in the future. But then yeah, bishop takes f7 checks a real blow for him. So b5 is the best move, but now he probably think, an opponent playing b5, if he didn't know what he's doing, probably think to himself, oh, b5 can't be good because now I haven't got anywhere really to put my king, which is true. And so yeah, white's only a pawn down here. Obviously b5 is completely fine for white as well. It's not like b5's it's a forced win for black. So bishop b3, now we have ideas of maybe playing a4 and attacking the b5 pawn, which is going to be weak. And now we're going to castle queen side as well to add the pressure. So queen c7, normal reply, and it's like classic queen side. And now I can ask white, what are you going to do about this position? It's quite hard to find the move, really, because most moves just, why does knight can't go anywhere? This bishop, if that moves, then we can win the g7 rook pawn. This bishop hasn't got anywhere to go. Okay, what strikes me is a5. If I was black, I'd probably play this, try to create some own attacking chances of my. Try to create my own attacking chances. I was wondering whether a4 works now. Attacking the b5 pawn. Obviously, if he takes, we could play knight takes and we get a good position. But if after b4, I wonder if we can get away with. So obviously, if knight e2, then bishop a6, and black's going to be doing very well. Well, okay, not very well, but okay, bishop c4 takes. He's going to probably be doing better than what white could inflict on him. So after b4 is one, but we can play bishop takes f7 check now, since the c4 square is available. The only thing I'm slightly worried about is our knight is now on pre, so it might not be as effective. Okay, so if king's probably best on e8, because after e7, like bishop c5 checks, or knight to b5 moves, or knight h4 moves. So king e8 is probably best. And now I think a good solution to this problem with the c3 knight is to play knight to b5 first before playing the check. So now we see that black can't take because queen takes on c7, and so the queen has to move here. So say queen back to b8, keeping an eye on the d6 square. Because say if queen to b7, we could play check, and after bishop b7, knight check wins the queen. And also queen d8 just cuts, doesn't give black king much breathing space, and also c-pawn's hanging. The c-pawn's still hanging here, but bishop b7 might be a possibility. I'll probably play check. And now, if obviously, bishop b7, we have the same rook takes g7 idea, which looks winning. And if king to d8, then knight takes e5 looks very good. So now threatening knight takes c6 check, or checkmate, or knight f7 checkmate. And after queen takes, we can play bishop to b6 check, wins. Because the king's got no squares, the knight can't take the bishop because it's pinned, and so the enemy is queen back to c7, and then that's checkmate. So after knight takes e5, this forces c takes b5. Okay, so we can already win the queen with knight c6 check, but the king sort of escapes, and so maybe play bishop b6 check instead. Okay, it still wins the queen. Queen has to take. And now queen takes check. Knight still can't take the pin against a king. Okay, so if king e7, we can play queen d6 check. So king probably going to go back to e8. Now play queen back to e6 check. Obviously bishop e7, but rook takes g7. And after king back to e8, we can play knight check, winning the rook. And after say king here, yeah, we just take the rook. And white is completely winning this also. So yeah, it's very hard for black to actually defend this position. I think it's best to ignore the capture of the pawn after g4. So yeah, as we just analysed, black gets himself in a real mess. Okay, so if he's going to ignore this capture of the pawn, he's got to stop g5, because g5, if white's allowed to play it, so say black plays c6, g5, then we see that knight's very short of squares. Knight, if it comes to g4, okay, we can just play rook g1 or h3, she's winning the knight. Obviously knight h5, pressure, as possible tactics of involving the queen coming to winning the knight, so maybe just knight takes e5 and then queen takes h5. So here the knight would have to go back to g8, and then we can play bishop c4, and we're not even a pawn down here, and so even after like knight here, we see that black's position is horrible. It's carry on bishop e3, queen d3, and castle queenside. So okay, so if black's going to ignore the capture, he probably has to play h6 in this position. But now white can play h4, which can be annoying. h4 is a line. Rook g1 I think is a better move, because h4 is actually not really threatening anything, because say if c6, pawn here takes, we can't actually capture back because of rook. We lose our rook. So that's why I think rook g1 is actually rook g1 is actually the better move here. So the idea is to play g5, and then after he takes, we can play knight takes, and we have our knight in that very good square. So say c6, g5, takes, bishop e7 for example, bishop c4, or even actually here I'll probably take this first, just to play like this, bishop e7, now bishop c4, just so there's no d5 complications. Okay, so now we're going just to win the f7 pawn, and so if he castles here, that looks like suicide. I mean, we can just play, get our queen onto the h file. It's going to be very dangerous for black, and also got rook lined up against the g pawn. Bishop can very easily come into the game. So yeah, this looks lost for black. Yeah, so it's hard to actually defend against this. I'm not quite sure actually how black is supposed to go about defending. I do think that the whole line of playing this philador sort of setup is too passive, and a g4 move very early on is very effective against it, since black is so tied down and you can't get active and defend against the various threats white causes because of the pawn structure. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it on this video. Okay, so one quick thing I'll show you is this the position that we're looking at arise from this move order with g4 now. It also can come about by, instead of playing d6 first move, e5, and so we play knight f3, d6, d4, knight d7. So this is the philador, where white normally plays knight c3, knight f6, and now we play g4 again. This is 100% transposition from the line we just looked at. So here, as you can see, I'm clicking on different positions and the pieces aren't moving, so it shows it's completely the same position. So anyway, thanks for watching, goodbye.